Hey folks, just been thinking some more about this artificial intelligence. Okay, so I'm going to go back to some of my sort of childhood programming and the way I used to sort of head scratch for days sometimes thinking about what is a creature, right? And I mean, I've obviously already talked about some of the kind of basic movements and so on, and how and mathematically how to cause those movements in the creatures, right? But then I think as I got a bit older, I mean, I eventually abandoned all this. I think by the time I got about 15 or something, I was more interested in other things. And but I think up to that point, I'd got to the stage where I'd considered giving these entities memories, and I think I'd given them some memories, right? And it would be memories to do with the success or failure of particular decisions they'd made, right? And I think I seem to remember I had like they could have up to 10 memories. And so a new memory would force out the um, the 10th oldest memory, right? So they had this kind of sliding window of memories, and the sorts of memories would be things like, should I eat this plant, right? And now some plants would be, I think I just used colours to sort of differentiate the plants, which was tricky because I think I only had 7 or 8 colours to deal with. It was maybe 9. Um, and so things like, so certain creatures, if they ate a red plant, would be poisoned by it, right? And another creature type might be poisoned by purple plants. And the thing is, the creatures, I thought, well, let's give them a chance to kind of avert those consequences in the future. So anytime they were about to make a decision, they would, of any kind, whether to kind of fight or flee from an incoming enemy, which by then, by the way, they had visual ranges and things like that. And so some creatures would have a visual range of sort of 4 blocks. Some will have 3, some will have 5. Like I said earlier, I didn't do any kind of evolutionary stuff, so there was no reproduction. This was just literally just so I could watch these um, environments play out, you know. Um, so I'm sorry, it's frustrating. I just got an email from work. I'm pretty sure I'd covered whatever it is they'd asked me to do. Um, so this got me thinking, and so if a creature has a memory, it can make decisions based on its prior experiences. So it can, a creature that eats a purple plant suffers some sort of damage to its health. I call them hit points back then because it was sort of D&D kind of reference, and they would then not eat it again. But the thing is, once they'd forgotten, if it had gone out of their sort of sliding window of 10 memories, then of course they might return to those plants and make the decision to eat them. Um, and so, it was, and it was also similar kind of stuff going on with creature types. So if a creature type X enters creature type A's visual range, creature type A has seen that creature before and previously made a decision to attack that creature. That creature um, did better, came off worse out of the combat. There was very little death in the, it would take a lot to kill a creature in this world. And so it would remember, there would be a decision going into its kind of decision array. And that decision would be that there was a decision to attack a particular creature type. So if it then saw that creature type within its line of sight range on some future occasion, then it would flee because it knew that the last time it made the decision to attack, it came off worse, right? And so there was things like that. And so I thought, well, once it's got all of these capabilities, it's got a kind of like a health rating. It's trying to maintain sort of homeostasis. It's got like a hunger rating, so it might take more chances. For example, there was a certain amount of random involved in some of these decisions as well, but it might say that even though it had a prior decision to allow or to ignore a particular creature type that had come into its visual range, um, it's going to do that. It's going to take that chance because if it doesn't, then it doesn't feed, and if it doesn't feed, it will die. And so things like that. And I mean, I realised, of course, that when I was doing this, that these were all just mathematical processes, and I thought, well, in some sense, there isn't a singular creature there because all of these processes really are going on in the circuits. It's not really on the screen. That's just kind of like as Hoffman puts it, a sort of desktop interface for what's really going on beyond that. You'd never send an email if you saw the truth of the email system rather than the icon for the email. Um, and so, but what if you can build something out of materials, and it's you can build in a kind of an inner eye, if you like, the kind of homunculus that sits inside this kind of theatre of perceptions and so on. The thing that's looking at the screen of perception, or the Markov boundary. So if you can give it that, and then you can give it a sort of sense of mortality, as Friston was talking about, if it's got perception, it's got intelligence, it's got a sense of mortality. I still don't think it's got phenomenal consciousness though, because I think all of those decisions are being made. I mean, they might be across distributed silica, right? So when you say, oh, it knows something, well, what is it that knows? And obviously, if you've got a physicalist sort of inclination, you're going to say, well, the same problem applies to the wet goods of the brain and so on, right? But, obviously with the idealist interpretation, we're like, well, no, that's just the appearance of this dissociated alter. So anyway, my point with this stuff is, I'm just trying to get into the nitty gritty of what people are really saying when they say they think a machine could be conscious. Because they're saying that they're saying that there will be phenomenal consciousness, awareness, right? Whereas I'm saying there's just a bunch of arrays somewhere in a database whose values are changing, and even if those values are being scanned by other procedures, that's still not introspection. That's just a bunch of other procedures scanning some values and perhaps adjusting their own weightings and so on. And I mean, neural networks, just because they look like the architecture of thought going on in a human brain, which of course, according to Kastrup and co, is just the appearance of thought rather than the physical substrate for it. Just because we've built a model that kind of looks like human neurons, it doesn't mean that just try and think about it. I mean, it reminds me of Kastrup's argument where he says, you could build a simulation of a kidney, it's not going to, or a urinary tract or something, and it's not going to piss on your desk. So I think there's still a lot of muddled thinking going on within AI. I think that where I would perhaps become a bit more convinced is if you could house it within an entity that can move around in the real world, and then obviously some sort of physical damage, and a sense of mortality, an inner life of some sort would have to be introduced, but I don't see how that could ever be emergent from any kind of mechanical software. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something here, because think about these large language models, right? I mean, even if we decreed that they started showing signs of self-awareness and so on, we would still then say, well, hang on, well, where is it really taking place? We'd say, well, actually, it's over a distributed network, just a bunch of electricity going on in circuit boards. And again, this is where Kastrup's kind of clockwork thinker argument comes in. So I don't know. I'm struggling to find a way through this, but I suppose there's something in this idea that even within the materials themselves that are being used to build these thinking architectures and the hardware that sits there under, if those materials themselves contain Markovian sets and so on, if there's agency within these lower level systems, then why can't an assembly of those lower level agencies have a kind of compound agency within itself? But then is it going to resemble the thing that we think it should in terms of self? I don't know. This is tricky, and I don't know where I'm going here. So I think I need some helping out. I think I need someone to come forward and tell me what the fuck's going on with this. Thank you very much. That's probably enough for today. Cheers. Bye.